Thanks, Linda, and welcome from my side too. As my colleagues previously discussed this day earlier, the matter of recruiting 4.0, mainly in the regard to Germany, we now would like to open up the view to a broader perspective. Nearly every day I'm reading in the news headlines about labor shortage in the view to professionals. The whole world suffers from a lack of talents. Maybe we can learn here in Germany something from other countries, some use cases, some best practices, how to connect companies and qualified professionals. Therefore, I'm very happy to welcome our guest to this international panel today. We have Mette Elise Busk, recruitment consultant at Eures and advisor at Workindenmark. She's been working with international recruitment and talent attraction since 2007. Workindenmark is a special unit with the Danish Ministry of Employment that supports Danish companies attracting and recruiting highly qualified candidates in sectors where Danish companies face skills shortages. Then we have Johann Harnoss. He's CEO and co-founder at the Imagine Foundation and expert partner for innovation and global talent at Boston Consulting Group. The Imagine Foundation is an NGO in Germany which offers digital bootcamp for software engineers willing to relocate to Europe. And last but not least, Anna Mitrasevic. She's Senior Vice President, People and Sustainability at Delivery Hero. She's responsible for the group's global people strategy and operations for embedding a sustainable outlook into Delivery Hero's ambition and internal culture. I believe everybody knows Delivery Hero, but for all of those who doesn't, Delivery Hero connects customers with the restaurants they love, as well as operating small warehouses located in strategically relevant locations for delivery all around the globe. Welcome everybody to this meeting. We have 4 topics today, and I have a lot of questions on my cards, and I would like just jump into the first topic, which is labor shortage in the tech sector, challenges of the recruitment process. The first question goes to Anna. What are the biggest challenges for companies to find skilled workers, especially in regard to the IT sector?
Thank you for the question. I would assume that question relates specifically to Germany, but I would construct my answer in a slightly broader way so that we can look at some examples globally. We operate in close to 80 markets and have tech teams in 9 locations globally, from Buenos Aires to Seoul. And we're seeing some similarities, we're seeing some common themes, but we also see specific problem statements in certain regions. So recruiting high-skilled talent in Germany and across all our markets is becoming increasingly more challenging. And the hiring has been felt of the past decade, but it hasn't eased in the recent change and slowdown of the hiring efforts globally. So we see the challenges in day-to-day recruiting efforts. So great talent is hard to get. Great talent with a high tech bar, with a kind of tech-first tech stack technologies being used, even harder to find. So we are looking at a very limited pool of skilled tech professionals, engineering in particular, but also machine learning, data scientists. And there's a competition for talent at the local level. There's a competition for talent at the state level. There's a competition for talent at European level, and then the global level. We are finding that candidates are very mobile and very much being reached out to by companies from different parts of the globe. So the notion of the local competition is becoming less relevant. Actually, we're competing at a global level. So what the challenge is specifically we're seeing that in Germany is that many companies, including Delivery Hero, rely on hiring from abroad because of the talent pool. So we have very sophisticated, all of the tech companies, very sophisticated ways of checking what talent pool is available and based on the competency framework they require for their skill set. And then we look at also potential, obviously, how to build skills when they're not available. But even with the potential or early career talent is looked into this shortage, so that we are fishing from the very much shrinking talent pool across the globe. In Germany in particular, we have additional complexity of administration hurdles of bringing talent into Germany. So we invest in sourcing and placing high skilled talent acquisition team to search for talent globally. But some of the hurdles that we have seen, which are different to some of our other markets, are, for example, we employ approximately 3,000 employees in our headquarters in Mette, and almost 80% tech talent is coming outside of European Union. So these are countries such as India, Brazil, Turkey, Russia, Pakistan, Iran, etc. And we're seeing extended times that are required for time. Specific example, in Pakistan, we're seeing that an array of issues with visa processes, but the waiting times for reunion visas 18 months, which means that we're expecting talent to move to Germany and wait for 18 months to be reunited with their families, which is just not feasible. That puts the big group of talent almost are not interested in the roles. That's something that I feel that we have the low-hanging fruit to solve for, as this is the talent that it's actually enhancing the speed of delivery and our economy growth as well. We're also seeing the visa tracking and accessing process globally is slowing down, and the lack of digitalization that I'm noticing in Germany. I'm recent migrant myself to Germany. I've spent the past 23 years in the UK. Due to wonderful Brexit, I also require visas, so I have a more empathetic heart when it comes to hiring talent from abroad, because I've experienced some of these procedures myself. To give an example, I had extension of visa, which was given to me in a paper format. So the whole idea of queuing, having a very different process from one process outside of Germany and the UK and then the one within the UK, completely different set of paperwork, lots of original documents, paper documentation, which is very taxing. But then the actual visa is given in a paper format as an addition, which I need to carry around. And it is something that we're actually not seeing across many countries nowadays. So this digitalization is, I am saying, is a low-hanging fruit, because we have seen markets, ample examples of markets globally. Most recently, Argentina, which had just learned how they digitalized some of their administrative processes. It makes it very difficult and not appealing for talent to go through that. So that these challenges I mentioned, the lengthy visa process, lack of standardization in regards to the documents required in different embassies and different consulates for the same country. Often the kind of increased and maybe a little over accentuated postal communication, the regional documents that then get returned, something goes missing, that which prolongs already a long process. And then administration of daily life, their employees are reporting lack of daycare facilities, low quality of some services compared to the local market, the local countries, and ultimately the lack of understanding the needs of digital talent. And I'm saying this because it's actual term, having spent the past 20 years in digital and tech industries across the world, the West Coast US, Singapore, Dubai. I'm actually not seeing I'm very much looking forward to Mette sharing her experience, that in Germany there is a specific task force and knowledge, the know-how at the local and federal level of the needs of the tech talent, which are actually very different to the general population, but also the general immigration talent needs that are working to help companies solve problem, because we're trying to solve all sometimes at a local, at an organizational level, and it leads us competing against each other, against working with each other to enhance talent pools. So I would absolutely like to discuss and maybe share with my esteemed panelists here how we see examples in some other countries where governments are very much strategically approaching the talent shortages to look at the certain pillars of solves, that require those task force to have the know-how and technical understanding of the process and challenges, so we can come to the table together and solve towards kind of one common goal.
Thank you so much. That was really a lot, and I can feel that the visa process in Germany is with a lot of paper connected. So, like everything in Germany for now. To Mette, the next question. Workindenmark offers possible solutions for the mentioned challenges. What is the specialty of work in Denmark? We cannot hear you. Excuse me. I believe you are still on mute. Yes.
I removed it. I was so afraid of forgetting it. Sorry. I don't know if it's that much a speciality of work in Denmark, but I think it's we're part of a government organization. So what we do is decided by the government, and they recognize the struggles that companies have in Denmark by attracting highly qualified, skilled workers to come to Denmark. Mainly what we do is we try to attract people from Europe, within Europe. Once again, a political decision. But however, it's made much easier these days if you are, let's say, an IT specialist of any kind or engineers to enter Denmark and get your visa from third world countries. Because with the salary you get, you can get in quite easy. Also, all companies in Denmark now, they have the possibilities to sign up for like a fast track so that they can get their employees in faster than normal. If they are like engineers or software developers, so they have a fast track so they can get straight in, start to work, and don't have to wait for all the paperwork to be done. And then I would say, I think what we do that makes it a bit easier is that we have the possibility to submit and do all the visa processes online. So you can do that from your home country. The only thing where you actually have